they do have to stretch the realms of reality. You know, they do have to contradict science and offer an alternative view, which is completely bogus, which is why I'm glad to see that people with people who are experts, people, you know, whose backgrounds are in this field are coming forward and saying, look, you guys are just straining any credibility you have here to the breaking point. We can't accept this. The only thing is, you know, these are things that's coming out in scientific journals and academic papers that are peer-reviewed. These are not things that appear on the evening news or are going to be on a front-page headline.
You know, that's a great point. First they said, like 3 or 4 years ago, oh, let's see some studies. And then they did studies. Let's see them be peer-reviewed. Then a couple of them get peer-reviewed by major peer-reviewed, I mean, not just side journals, big marquee, you know, Super Bowl-level journals. We're talking the big ones, you know, the most prestigious. And then they try to write that off. I mean, we keep clearing every hurdle, Mark, and the other side is just looking stupider and stupider.
And I believe that NIST itself is part of the executive branch, correct?
Yes, yes.
So there we see another example. You know, just like the Office of National Drug Control Policy is part of the executive branch, and they are the ones who constantly spew forth misinformation about the drug war. We have NIST, which is also an executive branch administration, you know, leading the charge about the lies regarding 9/11.
Well, like you said, though, more and more people are tuning out of mainstream media. It's exponential, and instead of them reporting some of the truth or trying to act more credible, it seems like they're getting more shrill, more cartoonish, more ridiculous, piling lie on top of lie. I don't know what the tactic is there, but it doesn't seem to be working, Mark.
Well, it reminds me of the old quote about, and I can't remember who said it, but it's just the old quote about truth coming out. You know, first, when you are a truth teller, you know, in this age of universal deceit that we live in, where those of us are trying to commit a revolutionary act by telling the truth, you know, it becomes evident that, you know, we will be attacked. That's the first method. Actually, the first method is to be written off and ridiculed, and that was the case early on after September 11th. Yes. We were all pigeonholed as conspiracy theorists, and we were out of our minds. So that was the ridicule. Then you had the vicious attacks. You know, now that it's becoming obvious that, you know, the 9/11 truth movement is based on truth and facts and evidence, we are being maliciously attacked.
Yes, and that's...
And then, you know, I just want to follow up again with that famous quotation, the third stage of the truth being accepted is that people will accept it. So I think now we are in the second stage. You know, those first few years we were attacked and vilified. We were ridiculed. Now we are being attacked and vilified. Hopefully we are coming close to that third stage where there will be mass acceptance of this truth, and people won't be afraid to put aside their cognitive dissonance and step out and accept this new paradigm of reality that we all have to see around us.
Oh, beautifully put. And that's really it. I don't blame a lot of people who don't want to look at the facts, because every night when I go to bed, and I look at how innocent my children are, and I look how good my wife is, and I just think, God, there are really evil people in this world, and they really are in control, and I've really gotten their face, and man, I've been threatened, and this is dangerous. But then I realize, you know, I just can't let the world go on like this. I've got to do my job, whether it has an effect or not. But the truth is, when good people do get involved, I believe as Thomas Jefferson said, you know, that we can overturn evil. It's evil only wins when good men and women do nothing. And you're right. First they ignore you, then they attack you, then you win. And that's basically what's happening now. And there's another quote I'm butchering, but paraphrasing. But, you know, truth goes through 3 stages. First, it's, laughed at, then it's ridiculed, then it's accepted as, you know, universally true. And people who said the world was round were laughed at, and now we know it's round, Mark.
Well, yeah, and just, you know, for me personally, you know, again, I think we should all just do what we can. You know, different people have different amounts of time, different resources, be they financial or whatever. But I just felt personally as an American citizen, it was my duty to speak out. You know, I was asked to do a newspaper article for my hometown. And it was just one of those deals, where are they now? What are they doing now that they're retired? And I felt compelled to at least let people in Erie, Pennsylvania, my hometown, who read the paper, know that somebody who came from there doesn't believe in the official story of 9/11, and wholeheartedly believes that they too should seek out the truth for themselves.
What type of response? I mean, I know overwhelmingly it was positive, but what type of negative responses did you get? And then what was it like with your moral courage to go through that and not recant?
Well, the reaction overwhelmingly was positive. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time in my hometown anymore, and I know that there were people who wrote in letters saying, what's wrong with this guy? He's way out in left field. But like we discussed earlier, now that we are coming up on 8 years after the fact, people are 7 years after the fact, people are becoming aware of what actually happened that day. The initial shock value of that psychological operation is wearing off. People are getting a chance to see what really went on behind the scenes. So I didn't really suffer much fallout at all. It was just, again, regardless of how many people might write in, and there's always going to be a few, who will just personally attack you. I experienced the same thing when I spoke out against marijuana laws. You have people saying that you're not a good role model, that you're a proponent of drug use and everything else.
Yeah, but you go to a football game and there's liquor ads everywhere, which
Sure.
No doubt is bad for you. But then, these guys with a whiskey bottle, how dare you be for that marijuana? I mean,
it's just, again, it's people have blinders on with certain respect to the war on drugs, just like they do with 9/11. So I just wanted to, for people in my hometown who might know who I am or what I stand for, or, at least they might know enough about me to know that I'm not just some guy spouting off, that I might be a guy who actually does have educated opinions, and it might be worth their while to follow up on what I said, because they might learn something.
Absolutely. Let's take some calls for Mark Stepnoski. Mark, before we do that in the last 15 or 16 minutes, any other points you wanted to add, anything else you wanted to point out?
Well, I would just like to tell people that they should make a personal commitment in their life to continue to educate themselves on these issues. The easiest thing in the world is just to pigeonhole something and write it off, put a label on it, and say, I don't have to look into it any further. They'll just categorize it as something they don't want to know, and then just move on. That's the easiest thing to do, and I say intellectually that's the lazy thing to do. I think people should take it upon themselves to have the initiative. If you're going to disprove something, if you're going to write it off, at least look into it and have an educated opinion about it. So I know there's a lot of nonsense out there regarding any topic, including 9/11.
Gotcha. What did you... Go ahead.
I would just, tell people to look into anything they can, like some of the things I mentioned earlier, Scholars for 9/11 Truth, any 9/11 Truth chapter. Cities all over North America have their own separate 9/11 Truth factor. We have a great one here in Toronto, Vancouver, British Columbia, as well as Toronto and Ottawa, across Canada, just like in the States.
I need to send you Truth Rising. We've got Canadian, U.S. 9/11 Truth, We Are Change just exploding. That new film just came out. I know you've seen Terror Storm. What did you think of that film?
I thought it was outstanding. There are a lot of great movies out right now. There's a current one people can watch on YouTube called Shadow Play, which is an excellent synopsis of the 9/11 false flag terror attack. It's a film that's coming out in segments, and they can watch those on YouTube. That's an excellent education for anybody who wants to kind of get a crash course on this subject.
Well, and remember, folks, the evil people that did this are still there, and I wish they were in a cave. That's a lot less scary than knowing they're in control of our government.
No question about it. I mean, we see now in a Dutch newspaper talk of an or an attack on Iran is imminent. I'm so glad to see that you're at the Democratic National Convention, because people seem to think that if we get a Democrat in office, there's going to be big changes. But the Democratic Congress has already signed off on a preemptive nuclear attack against Iran.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how anybody can expect anything to the contrary should Democrats be in power.
Yeah, and again, we're not bashing either party, folks. The point is that the corporates have taken over everything, and until we recognize that both parties have been taken over, we can never set about fixing the real problem if we're in that controlled paradigm. Again, 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl champion, Mark Stepnoski is our guest, former Dallas Cowboy, Houston Oiler. Let's go ahead and talk to Tim in New York. Then we'll go to Adam, Tim, Casey, Victor, and others. So go ahead. You're on the air, Tim in New York.
Hi, Alex and Mark. Give you a lot of credit for what you're doing. I'm involved in a situation here now where I'm experiencing my friend and girlfriend of 12 years is being soft-killed as we speak. She has a brother that's in the State Department. She gave him a copy of The Road to Tyranny in about 2002, and ever since then, her family's really been against us. She was an experimental guinea pig back in 1958 and had her thymus radiated. She's always had lifelong allergies and actually a victim of sexual abuse when she was a child, as her mother brought foster kids into the house. On July of this year, she finally found out that she had a lot of thyroid problems and a lot of hormone deficiencies causing some memory problems. About a month later, her brother came home from where he works in the State Department, coerced her into going to lunch with her. She never came home. What he did is told her he was going to get her to a doctor. The next day, he put her into the psychiatric ward up at Strong Memorial.